The first thing I want to look at is the concept of premise. It's a good place to start. One of the best known notions of how to make a thematic argument is to use premise. Lajos Egri, L-A-J-O-S, Egri, E-G-R-I, wrote a book called The Art of Dramatic Writing. And it was actually spelled with a great big exclamation point at the end. So it said, the art of dramatic writing. And the exclamation point. It was a very interesting book because in it he explained how you could take any given story and boil it down to a single premise, and that would describe the theme of that story. For example, he could say that one story might be boiled down to greed leads to self-destruction. Okay, greed leads to self-destruction. And you'll notice that the premise comes in three parts. Greed leads to, doesn't lead to, tends to bring about, causes, whatever. This is a causal statement. It says it either makes this come about or it prevents this from coming about. So you could say greed leads to self-destruction, or greed does not lead to or prevents self-destruction. Now, in each case, each of these three parts we can name. We can say this is the thematic topic. We're talking about greed, the thematic issue. Leads to is the thematic argument. And down here, self-destruction is the thematic conclusion. Well, Lajos Egri was able to look at many classic stories and boil them down to their basic premise. And the premise in those, the three-point premise, then became the notion that this is how we have to go about developing our theme. We need to create a three-point premise and then write our story based around that. Because clearly, if a story like Hamlet or The Fugitive can be boiled down to a single premise, then we should be able to take a single premise and from that write an excellent story, if this is the basis of it all. Well, the problem that we run into is this is really more of an analytical tool than a construction tool. If I were to tell you greed leads to self-destruction is your premise, get cracking, write something, what would you write? Well, you'd write about greed. Well, what about greed? What specific instances of greed? And how do you show them leading to? What's this leads to? We know where we begin, we know where we end, but what's going on here with the leads to? What do we do? What seeds are in there? That's the middle. You know how many people have trouble in writing? They have a beginning, they have an end, they understand these. Let's show a bunch of scenes of greed at work. Let's show how somebody ends up who's greedy. But then in the middle, leads to, how do we show one inevitably leading to the other? The middle of the story. Well, we're going to come up with a plan today in this class that will show you how to create 28 distinct thematic scenes. And each one of those scenes is going to explore an aspect of your premise, and by the time you're finished, you will have been able to lead your audience from your concept, your topic, to your conclusion in such a way that they don't feel that you have hit them over the head with a ham-handed statement that this is bad and that's good, but that they will have arrived at their own judgment, their own evaluation.